Hi everyone, it's Eli. You know how sometimes you stumble upon something truly game-changing in healthcare? Well, I found it. KinetiSense. This cutting-edge motion capture technology is transforming movement, assessment, and recovery. Imagine getting instant AI-driven insights without any wearables on your patient. That's right, no ping pong balls needed. Just pure, accurate data. Perfect for boosting athletic performance, pinpointing imbalances, and refining rehab. Top professionals worldwide trust KinetiSense to maximize productivity and results. Check out our partner page to learn more. Experience the revolution in movement. Welcome to Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More, the podcast that gives you a viewpoint in sports medicine that can't be found anywhere else. I'm your host, Eli Halleck, and we have a fantastic show ahead of us today. So, let's get started. Welcome to Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More. Today, we have the Senior Vice President of Program and Operations of Prevention Services for WorkCare Inc., athletic trainer, Brian Reich. How you doing, Brian?
Doing well, Eli. Thanks for having me.
So my tongue hurts right now from saying your title. Can you
Yeah,
explain, as an athletic trainer, what you do?
yeah, absolutely. I am a programs and operational leader. I started a program about 6.5 years ago with a company called WorkCare. And the goal of this program was really to provide total employee health services to clients all over the country. Finding those athletic trainers that are looking to maybe make a shift into the industrial setting and provide care to employees that are the backbone of America, really keeping manufacturing running in the United States, food processing, a lot of different industries, aerospace, focusing on using the great skill set that certified athletic trainers have to really become what we call industrial injury prevention specialists. So we give them a litany of training in ergonomics, and I'll talk more about that later as questions come along, but placing them on the work site in occupational health clinics with our clients to help keep employees healthy and safe, and really focusing on prevention and ergonomics as their primary goal to prevent the injury from happening before it happens, not just reacting when it does happen.
That tells us quite a bit right there. I appreciate it. Obviously, as an athletic trainer, you started out more in the traditional setting. If you go back, give us a little synopsis of where you came from and how you got into work care.
So I did my undergraduate work at Fresno State, go Dogs, with the infamous Scott Saylor.
There you go. Mr.
And
Saylor, how you doing, sir?
hope you're doing well, Scott. And spent some time there, and back in 2005 graduated out of that program. Moved forward in my career with a graduate assistantship with Azalea Sport and Orthopedic Clinic, assigned to the University of Texas at Tyler, out in East Texas. Love that area of the country. Spent a year there as a GA, and the second year I was the interim head athletic trainer. So quite a jump
Oh
in just
my.
a year.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
they liked what I did as a GA and offered me a full-time assistant position that summer. I took it, and then the head left. And so I took over as the head athletic trainer in an interim basis for a year. But being married to my wonderful wife of 20 years now, we had our first child out there in Texas, and she wanted to be back home in the Central Valley. We had met at Fresno State. So back we moved, took a job as the head athletic trainer of Reedley College, which now I think gets some notoriety since a kid named Josh Allen played quarterback there just after I left. And
Few
so I was
people
there
know that name, I'm sure. Yeah.
a few,
Just
yeah,
a
a
few.
couple.
Yeah.
So I spent 7 years there as the head athletic trainer over Reedley College. In my sixth year, I got a call from a good physical therapist friend of mine that said, "Hey, I think you were saying you were looking for some extra work." And I had had two more kids since then. And I said, yeah, I could use some extra hours early in the morning, though, because I'm working at the college from 11 to who knows when at night and all day Saturday. And they said, well, the power company needs an athletic trainer. For the guys that climb the poles and dig the holes, they get hurt a lot. And I said, well, I could do that part time in the morning. I'll check it out. So I took a job part time with Insight Health, which is now called Briotics Health, and did some work for them for a year with the Fresno Division and General Construction line workers. That's really where I got my passion for the industrial setting. I started working with these linemen, and one of them came to me and said, hey, you helped me keep my paycheck this month. And I said, huh, I just fixed your elbow tendonitis. I don't know what you're talking about. And they said, no, you don't understand. I have alimony payment and child support. And if I go out hurt or on restricted duty, I can't work overtime and I can't get my full paycheck. And I realized if I can help this guy feed his family, that had a lot of value to me. And not to mention, they had a lot of appreciation for what I did. So at the end of that year, the company was actually looking to broaden that program because of the success of the pilot to provide that to their entire physical workforce for the whole state of California.
That's a huge workforce. Oh my God.
Yeah, so 9,000 physical workers, 30,000 employees at the company, and they wanted to expand. So they had two different vendors that they hired in, and they needed program management. They had some, but they needed more program management. And I was fortunate enough to get a job as a senior safety program manager at Pacific Gas and Electric, managing the program I had just been working in, and managing the vendor I had just been working for 5 years. So I spent 5 years there learning industrial safety and ergonomics. Got a passion for ergonomics there as well. So I went and got an ergonomics certificate from Berkeley. They have a wonderful program for ergonomics called the COEH program that professionals can go back and take and learn all about industrial ergo. And then after those 5 years, came on to work care because what really drives me is helping people. And so I want to help as many people as I can stay healthy and injury free. My role at Pacific Gas and Electric allowed me to do that for 5 years for a large group of people. But coming to work here and developing this program that I've developed has really allowed me to help hundreds of thousands of workers across the United States. And that's what drives me every day. It gets me up, gets me going in the morning.
And you know what? That's a very common factor in any athletic trainer, let alone healthcare professional, helping people, helping others. And it's just an innate characteristic in who we are. So it's kind of fun to hear. Doesn't matter what setting we're in. That's what we do. We take care and we help others. I got to go back a little bit. You brought up a town I know a little bit about. We're going to do a little shout out to a good colleague that we both know as we were talking off air, Reedley College. You have a fun little story about a colleague. Now, we say this all the time. Be careful. Don't burn a bridge in this field because it is a small community. We know everybody. I saw the word Reedley and I just looked at you and said, got to ask one thing. Do you know Kirby? And you said yes. So
Absolutely.
if you could tell us that little anecdote about Kirby, our buddy, head athletic trainer for God, I couldn't tell you 30, I think it was 30 plus years.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I joined Reedley College, they told me, hey, you're going to have an assistant for football season for this first year. And he's well known. And I said, oh, okay. What's his name? They said, oh, Kirby Calc. And I said, okay, great. And I'm thinking because he's the head athletic trainer at the local high school, maybe he's another young professional. Because again, I'm just the other side of my master's degree coming in. And I meet this gentleman who's one of the best athletic trainers and great people that I know and have had the pleasure to work with and meet. And I said, "Man, you should be the head athletic trainer. I should be reporting to you." And he goes, "No, man, this is your show. I'm working at the high school. You got to run this thing. I'm just here to help you out." And so appreciated the help and guidance that he gave me that first year. And we became fast friends. We worked on the ROP advisory board together for all the years following that and had the pleasure of knowing and working alongside him for a long time. And although he's retired now, always in touch and reaching out when I can to check on him and see what he's doing in his travels. So yes, it is definitely a small world.
Just amazes me how small it is sometimes. Last message I got from him just a month or two ago. He was out in Montana. I'm looking at the pictures right now. Just a beautiful view of him on the river and on a big old lake doing what he loves. So a little jealous right now about the whole retirement thing. Man.
Yeah, I could jump on board with that at some point, but I do like working. So
Yeah, I got daughters. I gotta work. So yeah. Anyway, let's shift gears. Kirby, shout out to you wherever you're camping, hiking, fishing today. Hope you're having fun, my friend. Moving forward, you said something about ergonomics. Many athletic trainers, especially just coming out of school, might not know those certifications, those opportunities. And I had never heard about them. Granted, I'm a little bit older. You know, we were a little different type of program back then. But I was amazed when I got into the hospital setting for 4 years. We had a specialist that had become certified in ergonomics and just the value add in that. Can you talk about that program and how it applies to um, your field?
yeah, absolutely. So, athletic trainers get tons of training in biomechanics, right? We get structural and
Totally, totally.
functional. We know about the body in motion and the forces involved. And typically, hey, if you lift too much with a rounded back and your legs straight, you're going to blow out a disc in your back. I mean, we know that. So ergonomics touches on that, but that's just a piece of ergonomics. Ergonomics is much broader. There is office ergonomics and vehicle ergonomics and industrial ergonomics and laboratory ergonomics. So there's all these factors that come into ergonomics, not just how your body is in fatigue and injury risk, but what is the lighting in the environment? What is the noise exposure in the environment? How do we calculate the level of risk of a particular activity? The foundation of ergonomics is how do you design the workplace for the worker, not change the worker to fit the job task that needs to be done. And so, how can we reduce that risk? And there is a number of programs. I think if I could rewind the clock and go back, I might do my master's degree in engineering or human factors engineering, where you study the ergonomics of how somebody works. And there's a number of programs that open up to athletic trainers the ability to get further into that industry and make you more valuable in the industrial setting. So I know Colorado State has a fantastic program that is online asynchronous that's only around $600 that John Rosekrantz runs. Great program, great exposure, and can help give you the information towards understanding the technical side or the engineering side of ergonomics. The program that I mentioned that I went through, the COEH program through Cal Berkeley, is another one that's asynchronous online. It's a little more costly, but you get a master's certificate in ergonomics, and it can qualify you for with your other education, the Certified Professional Ergonomist exam, which to become a certified professional ergonomist is kind of the gold standard in ergonomics and is a challenge to apply and pass the test. There's only a little over 1,500 of them in the world. So it is a small field, but it provides you with some expertise. And I'm hoping to actually sit for that exam this next year.
1,500 in the world? That's it?
Yes, sir.
Holy moly. Sounds like a hell of an exam if that's the case.
Yeah, it makes my BOC exam. I was, old school test where it was 3 parts and you had the
Ah,
oral
boy,
practical.
yeah, there we
Yeah,
go.
I
Some
was
misery loves company, so I like hearing that.
Yeah, none of that online test
That's
just in
easy.
front of a computer. That's easy. Have six seasoned athletic trainers stare at you while you're doing a eval or a tape job and wondering what they're thinking, right? That's
After they had just pulled you in the mid question of a 200 question, fully everything test. Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
stop where you're at. Come with me. You're going to do a practical right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're going to throw you into a written simulation where you don't really know what the answers are and they give you all the answers, but it's a mystery marker. I better highlight the right thing and try not to kill this athlete.
Yeah. That was always the fun part with the highlighter, finding out you were wrong.
Yeah.
And now you got to go, wait, that's at least 1 to 3 points off. now I got to go back and find the right answer. Oh God, no, no. Yep. Everybody today, be grateful. That was a stressful 3-part exam for God, they gave us what, 8 hours, 10 hours? I forget
Yeah,
what it
it
was.
was the whole day. It
Yep.
was an 8 hour exam, and I will never forget driving in my car with four Japanese exchange students to San Diego from Fresno, playing Japanese pop music. Shout out to Satsuki and Azusa and Yuko as we drove for hours listening to awesome music to get down to San Diego.
Oh, that's cool. That's so cool. And kind of the neat thing, you're at a program or came from a program, well respected in our industry, well respected in California, not too far from where you're living. So I'm sure you get a little interaction with that program. And are you able to give back a little bit?
Yeah, actually, funny enough, just this last Wednesday, I met with the Kines 43 class at 7:15 in the morning and
Very
talked to them
cool.
about what I do. And so I do try and stay connected with the program and Dr. Ludwig that's over there now with Dr. Saylor.
Professor, also known as Dr. Ludwig. How you doing,
Right.
Chris? How you doing,
Good to
buddy?
good to shout you out as well, Chris.
There
So
you
yeah,
go.
we do stay in contact, and we do put on there's an alumni tailgate every year, and I try and get out to it. Didn't make it this year, but I did last year. We do stay connected, and I try and work with them. I actually am open to people reaching out if they'd like me to talk to their program. I do speak with a lot of programs. A couple years back, spoke to University of Kentucky, spoke with Alabama, spoke with different universities just to stay in touch and say, hey, these are the opportunities in the industrial setting. I'm very well still connected with Fresno State, and I believe we have over 5 Bulldog alum working with me here at WorkCare.
And in our industry, it's always nice to pay it forward by giving back. Going to name drop again. TK up at UOP. He
Yeah,
was the last program director for my program that is now defunct up at Humboldt State University. But being able to give back to your alma mater is just a little more, gives you a little something extra when you're able to give back. I'm a little jealous right there. I feel a close connection with Fresno State. We grew up around it a ton during the summers every year with family out there in the Clovis area. Hi, Tillery family, if you're listening. Very big proponents of the school, what Scott has done, and everybody else in that program, Chris and all the rest. Just fantastic. Love meeting their students, whether it's via Zoom calls, in person at FWATA, CATA, or when Chris is doing a presentation, wherever Chris is doing a presentation. So, excuse me, Dr. Ludwig
yes,
doing it. Yeah,
Dr. Ludwig.
Dr. Ludwig, you're right. Let's get back to talking a little bit about PG&E.
Sure.
So the first time I ever even had a thought about industrial, and at that time it was not industrial. I had a former football player who was doing a internship, but there's a different term for it in the industry. Please correct me if you know it. He was doing an internship to become a lineman.
Hmm.
So going up the pole, taking care of things. But because he wasn't a quote unquote employee, he thought he didn't have access. And he had
Mm,
tweaked his back and hurt stuff. And he had to do this internship for, I think it was a couple years before he could get a
yeah,
position.
they have a internship or apprenticeship
That
is
is it,
typically what
apprenticeship. Thank
they
you.
refer to it as. But yeah, they have a 4.5 year apprenticeship to become a journeyman line worker.
Holy moly.
And I actually helped develop a class we called it Fitness Day, or nicknamed it Survival School, that myself, and huge shout out to my fellow program manager, Cindy Benner Sagamonian, and Garrett Chan, who I believe is still over there doing ergonomics with Pacific Gas and Electric, worked together to build this Fitness Day program where we educated them on how to do self-care when you first experience discomfort, how to take care of your body, how to do general ergonomics like neutral body postures, and understanding what can put you at risk while you're working, and let them know about some of their benefits like what we called the industrial athlete program over there. So interesting that he was looking for help. Didn't know that he could get a hold of that industrial athlete program. He probably hadn't had the class yet.
More than likely, he ended up in his old high school athletic training room getting help from us, which was fun. It's always fun to see alums. Hate to see them when they're hurt, but that seems to be when they come around. But it's just awesome to see how it's evolved from a kid who didn't know to it's everywhere now. Industrial work care, whether it's PG&E, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, it is an industry or a portion of our industry that is
Mhm.
just absolutely blown up in the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my program alone's gone from me and one 8 hour a week part-time athletic trainer in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Shout out to Calla Early. And now I have over a 110 injury prevention specialists spread across the country in every different industry. And I would say about 90% of them are certified athletic trainers is their background.
That's so awesome. So you said 110?
Yeah, it's over
Give,
that, but
give or
yeah,
take,
it's
yeah.
give it a couple of weeks, Eli, and it'll be 150. Like it's so rapidly growing.
Snowballing. Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
To play off the Christmas theme we were talking about earlier. Now,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly. Now, question for you with that. How do you, it's got to be hard to keep track of something going so quickly. How do you keep track of so many athletic trainers and
Sure.
making sure that they're on task? Because I presume, like you said, multiple industries, multiple states, that's got to be tough from the managerial side.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things when you build a program is that it's scalable. And so, imagine if we started at a brand new D1 university and you said, well, we're going to have one athletic trainer do everything for every sport. There's some that do that. It's very painful, right? And then you realize, oh, we need an assistant here, an assistant there. We need to roll in a student program so we get support here. We need to get graduates in here, and we need to build this out so we have eyes on each part of the program and how we can support it. And so knowing that and experiencing how to really scale. So this is some business acumen that I probably gained mostly from my father, who worked in big business and in sales for his entire career. But I built the program in such a way that we could scale it to have support for that staff. So one of the things we do is we have supervisors over any of our large programs so that there's that kind of, think of it like, hey, we've got a bunch of assistant athletic trainers and here's their head athletic trainer over the top of them, right? So we have a supervisor, and then over the group of supervisors are also program managers. And those program managers help provide support to our clients as well as the providers on site. And we set reasonable goals for them, attainable goals for them. We have an internal documentation system that shows us, hey, this is, and I help design the documentation system so that it gets the data our clients need, but also it helps our providers be able to work efficiently in documentation. Because let's be honest, does anybody love doing documentation? No, I'd never let
No,
anybody.
we hate
Nobody,
documentation, but we
nobody
got
likes
to
it.
do it. Yep. So
You got to
true.
do it. It's a necessary evil because I want to be able to show the value of those providers on site to the client that they're working for and say, look, this is what your injury prevention specialist has done for you. And this is the value. And without documentation, I can't do that.
Got to have data. Got to have data. Data is king.
Absolutely, especially in the industrial setting when you're dealing with big corporations. So we have those program managers, and then we have operations manager and director of operations role that helps make sure those program managers are supported. And then I have an implementation and training manager, and the implementation and training manager, as well as the director of operations, report to me. So it all trickles down, and there's this scalable support where if a client hits a certain number of injury prevention specialists on site, they get a supervisor. If they get enough supervisors together, then we go, we need another program manager. And so it's very scalable and I do it on the front end to make sure that the injury prevention specialists feel supported. And one of the other things we do is we built a community of practice. So regularly, the injury prevention specialists are meeting together and weekly doing this so that they can share ideas together. We have them connected in Microsoft Teams chats so that they can constantly be pinging off each other. And it feels very much like a tight-knit athletic training room vibe because it's like you're all sharing the same office, even though you're spread out all over the country. And I think that's important for this type of work where you may feel like I'm out on an island because I'm at a factory by myself in some small town in the country. You still have that connection with and camaraderie with your fellow injury prevention specialists.
Which is awesome because so many of us got into this out of athletics. We're used
Mhm.
to that team feel. We're used to that athletic training room vibe where it is a team. And you go into healthcare in any industry, it is a team game. Doesn't matter if you're in a hospital, in a clinic, in a sports medicine clinic, athletic training clinic, whatever you want to call it, it you need that camaraderie because, like you said, bouncing ideas. I
Yeah.
know I got better here as a clinician the moment we brought in a second guy. Because now I'm out on the phone trying to help get different ideas. I turn and look at Joel. Hey, here's what I'm thinking. Then we had a third person just a year and a half ago. She's younger, different ideas. We sit there bouncing ideas off all the time, and it makes us better clinicians. That's that. I love how you use chat and Teams to keep that vibe going, even for that individual, like you said, that's maybe unto an island themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing we do that's important is that with any new hire, we actually have a separate meeting just with the leadership team. Now, the entire leadership team that I mentioned, they're all certified athletic trainers. That's their background. They all have a background in different industrial and hospital settings. So they have a lot of experience in the industry to share and offer. But every new person that comes in understands what our background is, what our passions are outside of work, how we got to where we are. So a little bit about our story, and then that we're accessible. I just jumped on a meeting the other day with an on-site provider that had a unique ergonomics problem, and they brought in an engineer and the safety professional. We all got on a meeting. They showed me some pictures. I made some recommendations for a problem solution. So I try and make sure that they understand that no matter what our title is, no matter if I need an index card instead of a business card because the title's so long, I don't care about that. Come talk to me. It's a community of practice. Learn from what I've learned. We built a mentorship program so that within our own group, we can mentor those that come along and need more support in certain areas because it is a unique setting and it is different than your traditional sports setting.
Elevate your knowledge, ignite your curiosity, and compete with the best minds at events hosted by the American Academic Competition Institute. AACI's sports medicine competitions feature practical exercises, challenging quizzes, specialty tests, and keynote speakers that foster knowledge and social engagement in healthcare and sports medicine. Go to aacitest.org for more information on upcoming regional and national competitions. Sign up for the ultimate intellectual showdown. Now, if you don't mind me asking, I'm wondering if you can you name some of the corporations that WorkCare works with? Or if not, maybe kind of the industry setting.
Sure. I know there's a couple that I can mention just because they've published a few things. We do work with Pacific Gas and Electric. They've come out and said we work with them. So the National Safety Council actually published a little bit of information on what we did with them. We actually work with pretty much every major utility on the West Coast. We work with a very large American automotive manufacturer. We work with one of the largest heavy to light manufacturing companies in the country
Oh,
that makes
fantastic.
makes stuff that goes on every utility pole. They make stuff that goes in almost every home, from electrical components to automotive components. They do aerospace work. So they're a very, very large manufacturing company. We do some work with Unique Aerospace. So people that build airplane engines.
Ooh,
And
fun.
yeah, and so we do a little bit of everything and get to work in a lot of different industries. Food production is another one, paper mills. There's a lot of variety and opportunity that we offer. If you say, "Hey, I like the idea of working industrial, but I don't want to be at a desk or in a factory. I want to be outside. That's why I got into sports medicine, was to be outside. I say, then you're perfect for the utility setting. You get to go outside and work out in the field with the linemen and the gas service representatives, the utility workers, and you're not inside all day. There's others that go, man, I would love to not be in the elements anymore. I do not want to be in the heat in the Central Valley in the summer. I say, I hear you.
The heat in the summer? No such thing in Central California. What's 115? I mean, no big
Yeah,
deal. No big
we just
deal at all.
we just broke a record for triple digits a couple years back for the most consecutive days in triple digits in the
God, I
history.
remember that. Yep, yep.
Yeah, it's brutal.
I was impressed. We had a earlier episode. Jacob Pope, athletic trainer, shout out to you, who does industrial setting. And I had no idea that he would travel out to visit with the people going up the pole, do analysis of their equipment, do analysis of how they get in and out of the truck, analysis of up
Mhm.
and down the pole, and the ergonomics of everything. And I sat there going, that makes so much sense for the healthcare that those guys need. So to hear you talk about someone being able to A, stay in the elements, or B, an old guy like myself going, yeah, I'm looking outside. We got rain. It's 60 degrees, which is cold in California. I'd rather stay indoors. It's just kind of cool to have that option.
Yeah, we try and have a variety of settings available to any professional, right? What's your preference? Why are you, oftentimes people say I want to get out of the sports setting because I hear the money's better in industrial, or hey, I want to get out because I want the hours to be normal. I would love to work 40 hours a week.
What?
Yeah, there's something called a weekend, Eli. I don't know if
What?
you heard
What?
of it.
I,
It's these 2 days at the end of the week where you don't work.
so I know that happens on Sunday. I work at a private Catholic school, so we're not
Mm,
allowed things on Sunday.
gotcha.
God bless it. But those other 6 days out of the week, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
40 hour work week. I dream about that.
Yeah, and we
Literally,
have
that's it.
we have opportunities for overtime here and there with certain clients. They allow for overtime. In the utility setting, we have opportunities where if there's fire or storm, somebody can respond to that and go out and work at a base camp where after a storm, there's a lot of down power lines. And so they make almost like a military camp at a nearby location, and they deploy from that mobile service center essentially to get out into the field and do the repairs as quickly as they can. And so we'll actually send our staff on site to run a first aid tent to support that staff, because they will work up to 30 hours that first shift and then work 16 hours on, 8 hours off for up to 2 weeks before they take a mandatory rest period.
Oh, that's yeah. See, I love stuff like that. That sounds like a blast to me. I mean, I'd be all over that MASH unit 4077
Right?
style, taking care of people. I love that kind of stuff. I love emergency medicine. I love trauma, which is horrible to say because that means people are getting hurt. But I love helping them when they're hurt. So I just like helping people. But
Well,
I just, yeah,
I get it. That's how I started my career when I was a student athletic trainer. I worked with United Spirit Association, the cheerleading organization that I think now Varsity Corporation owns all of them. I worked with
pretty
United
much.
Spirit Association as a first aid. They used to call them medics. They changed it to first aider. And the amount of trauma you would see in a competitive cheerleading competition, throwing a girl 16 feet in the air and not catching her. I get it, man.
Yeah, you got to catch her. You got to catch
Yeah,
that
you got to
person.
catch them.
Otherwise, we're busy.
It's the only time in my life I've had to spine board three people side by side.
Holy mackerel. So everybody missed and everybody fell.
Everybody missed. Only two people went back to catch the flyer over concrete. All three of them hit the back of their head. All three of them unconscious. And protocol at the time was to spine board and transport.
Well, I hope in the long run they were fine.
From what I know, everybody was okay.
Sounds good. Holy moly. And that, Elizabeth, my daughter, if you're listening, is why we said you could not be a flyer your freshman year of high school. Right there. That's it. That's why mom and dad said, yeah, no, don't care how tiny you are, you're not getting thrown. Right there. That's it. Period. Exclamation point. That's how it rolls. Wow. So you're making an impact in our profession in ways that probably when you were back in your dog days, go Bulldogs again, you had no clue. where you'd be going, what you'd be doing. But it's kind of impressive because by developing this, like you said, you are helping tens of thousands of people every day. And that's got to give you a real cool sense of accomplishment in your career.
Yeah, I mean, if you had asked me back in the day, Brian, what do you want to do when you grow up? Right? What do you want to be? I'm still figuring it out, by the way.
My
But
wife asks me that every day still. So,
see,
I get.
it makes sense to me then. But I would have told you, man, I had the opportunity, shout out to Dr. Jim Ave over at Fresno Pacific University. I did my senior year assignment with Fresno Pacific and also Fidi Cuevas for his support during that time. But I learned a lot there, and I would have said, man, I want to work at like an NAIA or a D2 or a D3 school. I didn't like the drama and politics of a D1, and I didn't want to do high school because I wanted to really focus on that college age. Like I still liked that age of athlete where I could treat him like an adult and didn't have to call mom and dad when we did something. So that was kind of my sweet spot. I had done an internship with the Central Valley Coyotes. They were an arena football AFL2 team.
Okay, yeah, I remember them. Of
Yeah,
course.
they were in Fresno for a little while. Worked with a great guy, Rex Grossman, that was out there, and I realized very quickly professional was not for me. Even at AFL2 level, I'm like the egos here. It's not for me. So working with the college age, that was my passion. I thought I was going to work at Reedley College forever, but because my foundation was helping people, and when I saw I could have a bigger impact, that's what led that transition for me, right? And over the years, my career developed from being open to opportunities and really focusing on striving to do the best job I could in any scenario. How can I help as many people as I can in this setting? How can I connect with these employees? That was another huge part for me, was making sure I was connecting with the employees and developing those relationships so that I could convince them to do some of the stuff that I was recommending. Oftentimes in the industrial setting, this is a problem that comes up for a lot of athletic trainers that make the shift. Athletes want to get better. They're motivated to be out on the field. Most workers are motivated to be at work. They find fulfillment in their work, but there are some workers that don't want to go back to work. They want to go out on disability. They want to get a paycheck while they sit at home, even if it's a smaller paycheck. So understanding how to connect and get on the preventative side of things really came from understanding some sports psychology. Amazing sports psychology teacher, Tim, back at Fresno State, gave me some great advice, and I learned a lot about what motivates people and what drives people to want to be successful. So I would often connect my recommendations for injury prevention or what they should do at home for injury self-care to what they already love to do. I'd say, hey, what do you like to do on the weekend? And some guy would say, oh man, I love fishing on the weekend. And I wouldn't tell him, hey, let's correct how you're turning that wrench to put less stress on your elbow because I know more about ergonomics than you. I'd say, hey, does your elbow ever bother you while you're fishing on the weekend? Yeah. What if I told you I could tweak something in your job that would make you fish longer and your elbow wouldn't hurt as much while you're fishing?
I'm in. Let's go. Yeah. We doing bass, we doing trout. What we're up for.
Yep,
Yeah. Tell me
100,
what to do.
100%. That's exactly the response I would get. And so I'd say, all right, let's talk about it. Hey, I noticed you're turning that wrench with your wrist and an extension while you're gripping it. That's going to put stress on your elbow on the medial side. Let's talk about what you can do to prevent that from happening and how to recover afterwards so you can fish better on the week. And they come back and go, man, I went fishing this weekend. My elbow felt great. Thanks for giving me that tip on my job. Because if I just show up and give them advice on ergonomics, they're going to say, kick rocks, kid. You don't know what you're talking about. I've done this job for 20 years.
It rocks. I love it. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. But if I show up and I give them solid advice on how to improve their fishing on the weekend, then they're willing to try some of the things that I suggest. And so that's a tip I give to any athletic trainer in the industrial setting. Free information right there. Go and tie it to what they love to do.
I love that. That's a great way to do it because it doesn't matter how you get to the final response. A, B, C, D. You might go A, G, F, X, Y, then get to Z. That's all that matters, getting there. I mean, you tell me I can make my elbow better for fishing. I'm in, baby. Let's go. I want to go catch that largemouth.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's a great antidote and great way to look at it. You also touched on something, and I had a flashback to working in a hospital. You see some people that are extremely motivated to get back, and you mentioned one earlier in this podcast who was motivated by, I hate to say paycheck, but getting that paycheck in. And there are
Yeah.
some that realize, hey, I'm getting a partial paycheck and I'm okay with that. As a former athlete, many athletes at different levels, they're motivated. And I didn't, it took me such a long time. The first time I came across this as an athletic trainer, I was working at a hospital in a clinic on a workers' comp case, and he was a officer. I say that, okay, there's 50 million officers out there that have been on workers' comp, so no HIPAA violation here. And he just wasn't getting better. And I remember working with the PT, working with this patient, and we're trying to figure out, because 1 + 2 did not equal 3. You know, 2
Right.
+ 2 didn't equal 4. There was a disconnect. And one day he brought his son in, and his son was all of maybe 5. Cute little kid bouncing all around, and we're asking daddy questions. And, you know, well, what do you do? What'd you do this last weekend? We don't understand why you got where you got. If you're saying you're at 8 out of 10 pain, when on Friday you left, you were at 4 out of 10, and we've got to do this to get you back to work. And his son looked at him and narked him out in a heartbeat. He dropped dime and said, "But dad, you went out back and planted all those rose bushes that mommy wanted, and you dug all those holes." And I paused and I went, "Oh, I never even thought about that."
Hmm.
Never ever. Now, in the industry nowadays, in the educational process, we do a lot better on prepping for the psychological aspect of getting people back in. But like you said, there are some that want to get back, and some, they're fine if it takes a little longer. Now, feeding off that story, how do you really nudge those patients that need a little extra oomph to get them through?
Yeah, I think that, finding those individuals that say, I can take all the time off that I want. Typically, people will watch other people's back more than sometimes they'll watch their own. And a big shout out to Justin Freeman, my operations manager. Even though he's a Boise State grad, that's proof we're an equal opportunity employer because of that rivalry. But Justin actually has a presentation. He originally titled that and it got tweaked. He's presenting it at the Industrial Hygiene Conference this year. But it's a common thing that people will look out for their fellow coworkers and not always look out for themselves. They're more concerned about other people sometimes. And oftentimes, that employee that needs that extra nudge doesn't realize the additional workload they're putting on their coworkers by still being out. So sometimes that extra nudge can come from you realize you're making everybody else pick up your slack while you're out, right? And we're going to end up with more people in your department hurt because you're taking this extra time that you don't really need. Sometimes that is the motivation for them to go, I didn't even think about that.
So a little bit old fashioned guilt.
Well, but
A little bit.
it's a little bit guilt, but it's a little bit it's a reality check.
I
Like, are
like
you
it.
most of the time you're thinking about your fellow employees, but right now you're not. In the utility setting, they actually use a phrase because it's a unionized workforce of be your brother and sister's keeper. They'll say that. And they're talking about looking out for the safety of their fellow line worker or utility worker in those settings. What's fascinating is they'll do that for safety, but sometimes they don't do it for all the aspects of their health. Whether that's their financial health or their mental health or their physical health, they're not always thinking about each aspect of that. So it's important to encourage them to look out for that. Other times, to give them that extra little bit of motivation, sometimes it's the paycheck, sometimes it's really what we just talked about, that purpose driven. Where do they find their purpose? Hey, you're not going to be able later in life to be able to do some of these things that you want to do if you milk this thing. If we actually get in there and get you better and return you to work in better shape than when you left from this injury, then you'll be able to play with your grandkids. You'll be able to do those things you love to do, coach that little league team in your off time, right? It's those kind of things that can help motivate somebody to get back involved and finish out their, their rehabilitation or their return to work protocols or those things that they're maybe delaying on.
And it goes right back tying into, like you said earlier, tying into something they truly love, whether that was fishing, tying it into family, being able to play with your grandkid later in life, tossing a ball, having a tea party, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That makes total sense to me, because you got to look forward into the future. Love it. Absolutely love it. And you know what? I got to give a little nod, shout out, whatever you want to call it. You actually, and I just got to ask, you said Fede Cuevas a little while back.
Fede
Fede,
Cuevas. Yeah.
Fede. Is that
Fidencio.
Fidencio? My buddy. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while. You said that name. I've never heard anybody call him Fede. So,
Oh,
Fede.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to have to throw that out next time I see you, Fede, at either
Yeah.
CATA or Quada. Yeah,
He
great guy. Done
he
so much for high school setting. He's fantastic.
huge for high school setting, for AEDs in the high school setting, made a huge push for that and did an amazing job with that. But I will never forget when he was a grad student over me and gave me the opportunity working with men's basketball. We had an eyelid split injury during a basketball game, finger to the eye, split the lower eyelid in half. Speedy looked at me and goes, "Go take care of it."
There you
And
go.
as a student, I'm like, "All right, yeah, let's go." Some of my first real injuries I get to jump on. So took care of it. Ended up going to the hospital with this basketball player and his parents to a very busy ER. And I will tell you, relationships paid off, as we talked about earlier, Eli, because sure enough, working in that ER was a nursing student I had had classes with, and she was working with the other nurses. And I said, "Hey, I know it's busy, but I got this guy that split his eyelid. If you could get him seen, like he needs help as quick as possible. Ideally, like needs his stitches like now." And from the time we walked in the door to the time we walked out the door with his stitches that were done by a plastic surgeon that was on call was about 45 minutes
Holy moly, that's phenomenal.
on a busy
Network,
night in
network,
Fresno.
network. Oh my God.
Network. And ironic in that story was the mother of that basketball player had been a nurse in that hospital and had met her husband because he was an injured Fresno State football player that had
Oh
come
my
in.
God, what a circle.
And she said, "I don't know how you did it, but thank you. I just don't
Oh,
know how you did it." And I said, "I just knew the right people at the right time, ma'am. That's
uh,
all. That's all it was."
it's just networking in right place, right moment, just like you said. That's a hell of a story. 45 minutes on a busy night with a plastic surgeon.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
I'll say that was
That's a
just luck
cherry
in
on the
that
top
one.
right there. I
Yeah, that
mean,
was just luck on that one. It just so happened that the person on call at the moment was a plastic surgeon that was on call to do the sutures. And so it was unreal.
you deserve a Christmas card every year from that athlete. I mean, come on, you saved him.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Back to some of the equipment found at maybe the work care facilities. You brought up
Sure.
AEDs. Obviously, you're going to have those everywhere. But what are some of the big things if someone's going into the industrial setting? What is some of the equipment that they would expect to find in a typical industrial setting that they're ready to go through to utilize in their daily cares?
Certainly. So, there's some limitations to an athletic trainer working in the setting. You've heard me mention industrial injury prevention specialists. We call them that because it's not just certified athletic trainers. We have physical therapists and occupational therapists that come in and work with us. And in some cases, somebody that has the right mixture of background and training that's even just an exercise science or kinesiology major could potentially move into this role. Typically, you're going to see what would fall under OSHA first aid. So if you're not familiar with that, you can Google OSHA first aid, and there's a whole list in 1904.7. for OSHA that lists what first aid is. So you can do massage, you can do heat, you can do cold, you can do non-restrictive bracing, you can do taping and wrapping, which includes kinesio tape, which, that was funny when kinesio tape first came out and said, we could basically cure cancer. And so OSHA said, well, you can't use it for first aid then. And then the NATA jumped in and said, hold on, it's really just tape. It is beneficial and has some benefits to it, and clarified. And then OSHA said, oh, that falls under our wrapping and taping. It's just first aid.
I love that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so NATA at work for y'all in this setting to be able to use that. But that's a typical clinic would have, massage tools that would be an extension of the hand. No massage guns because that's considered a device. They don't like devices with OSHA. Anything that plugs in and is mechanical. There's a lot you can utilize in the clinic for OSHA first aid, but the most valuable thing is your hands. Doing manual therapy and using your taping skills and knowledge to provide that care. Those are the things you're typically going to see in a clinic that are primarily going to be used in that initial injury response.
And with you starting to talk about different equipment or devices, it really sparked in my head, and you said it, more treatment is going to be on the manual side, which is awesome. I love manual therapy personally. I think it's fantastic. We kind of tease my buddy Eric Lanswick, who's a PTATC. We call him Yoda on the sidelines because he is a manual therapist that teaches manual therapy techniques. Just amazing. But Voodoo, I mean, he does some stuff and we go, how the hell does that work, buddy? And I've worked with him for 28 years. He is the best PT I've ever come across. Sorry, honey. My wife's a physical therapist as well. But manual therapy is just amazing, especially when you get your hands on that person and make that big of a difference. No matter what technique you use, MFR, strain counter strain.
Yep.
You name it.
Acupressure
yeah.
and various positioning with effleurage afterwards.
Yep.
And, a big fan of, some of the things AT Still University teaches. And there's a great professional that presented at NATA that was the first female athletic trainer for the Dodgers that then worked at AT Still as a teacher. And I'm not going to recall her name right off the top of my head, but I remember her presenting on manual therapy at NATA and going 100%, this is something that I'm about. So I was always about, leveraging those techniques to provide increases in range of motion, decrease in pain is the first thing we can do in a reactionary thing. But that's typically what you're going to see. One thing that's unique in industrial is if you end up working in a military setting or fire or police, they're not governed by OSHA. And so it's not your typical industrial setting, and you actually get to function as what I like to call a tactical athletic trainer. And we do have some opportunities there because we do a lot of wellness programs with police departments and along with large fire departments. We work with CAL FIRE as well on their wellness. So there is opportunities in those settings to function and still get to use your modalities fully.
I did not realize that the fire department, police department, and other such entities were outside of OSHA's reach. So that's I learned something today. Very interesting. But again, manual therapy. Now to go back, I had to look it up. Sue Falsone.
Yes, Sue Falsone. Yep.
First female head athletic trainer for the Dodgers. Yeah, just had to look. Had to make sure I couldn't remember her name either. Had to figure it out.
And it was many years ago, but when she presented a large presentation on manual therapy, and that being a highlight as maybe a keynote potentially even at NATA, and then I saw a follow-up from when she was at AT Still and looked into the philosophy, and I think I still have some of those slides back from that presentation just because it had that big of an impact on me, and then paid dividends in the future as we trained a bunch of injury prevention specialists to focus on manual therapy.
And that was going to be my next question. I presume then you're offering manual therapy training for staff, employees that are in the clinical setting to really push that emphasis and take care of their patients, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we leverage a lot of education on manual techniques as well as anytime we have a provider kick off at a new site, we actually send our supervisor program manager out to the site for a few days to work with them and set expectations. So they're really from the get-go understanding what the expectation is, what they can and can't do. We're doing an assessment of what their skill level is. And anytime somebody needs additional training in any particular area, we're willing to help support that and give that to them.
Always nice when the boss man takes care of the clinicians, the employees, because, well, that's how we get better is doing further education. One question pops up every year in the class I teach. I teach a sports medicine class, kind of an introduction into healthcare, more or less. We talk about how you can't stop learning. You got to learn for life. And my students look at me, so Mr. Halleck, even you have to go to school still? Like, well, school per se, not like you think, in a young men, because I work in all boys school. But I explain, continuing education and what we have to do. And it sometimes gets you a little fired up because you learn a technique, you love it, and you want to put it into practice. And I'm sure you see that all the time with the new clinician.
Absolutely. I remember the transition from, rice to meat. Like, well, let's rest, ice, compression, elevation, everything. Wait, actually movement and maybe some massage and, changing those macrophages from phase one to phase two in the first 48 hours via massage can make a difference. And I just went big time physiology on everybody. That's one of the things that I prescribe to is never stop learning. There's always an opportunity to read. You should know how to read good research and bad research and tell the difference. And you should be able to say, this is a really valid research study that's providing great information. Let's bring that to the forefront. My implementation training manager, Chris Proctor, and I are actually presenting this year at the Applied Ergonomics Conference on Nutra Ergonomics, which is where nutrition meets ergonomics.
Oh,
Paper was,
interesting.
yeah, paper was published back in 2015, so 10 years ago, and it talked about the intersection of understanding nutrition and its effect on somebody's fatigue as they work, both their mental and physical fatigue as they work. So if you start making that direct connection, which we do in athletics all the time, we look
All
at
the time.
abs
Absolutely.
yeah, we look at how's this meal going to affect this athlete. Hey, believe it or not, a donut and Red Bull isn't breakfast if you want to perform at your highest level.
Says who? Wait a minute. Although it's
What?
coffee, not Red Bull. I won't go there. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, we talk about that all the time. Hey, you've got to get good nutrition to be at your highest level of performance. Well, we talk about it in sports science all the time, but it doesn't make the transition necessarily into the industrial setting and into the average population out there. So, how can we, as injury prevention providers, start educating employees on that? And sometimes it starts with, hey, we need to educate the safety professionals and the ergonomic professionals so they can bring that information back. And so that's why we decided to present on that is it's kind of two worlds colliding, the sports science, nutrition, and ergonomics coming together. And there's a decent body of research on that. So I encourage all of you out there, if you're not out there reading research, you go, man, I am barely getting by. I'm working 80 hours a week and I don't have time to think about anything other than refilling that next 10-gallon cooler and getting it onto the golf cart, right? Find time to read some research that actually interests you. It can continue your learning process and get you excited about what you're doing because you might learn a new technique via the research that you do a little more study, you see another video on it, you go, I'm going to try this out. And it might be that thing that helps your athlete get back on the field that the normal stuff wasn't working.
So true. Love it. Great, great comment and great idea. I know in my case, I forced myself years ago. This is an idea for any of you doing teaching out there. My students have to go through every quarter, so 4 times a year, and do a journal article review, which forces me to read them and grade them. So I don't love them all, but every now and then I come across a pearl, and it's fantastic. Keep reading, keep getting educated, makes us better clinicians.
A
Love it.
hundred percent.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know you got a job to do. I know I've got a job to do, and I don't want to take your whole day. So I'm only going to ask you one more question. And then we're going to say thank you and let you get on to taking care of tens of thousands of people today through your network of, well, work care employees. I love it. If you could go back and look at yourself back in the day, in the Bulldog day, and give yourself a little advice, or any of your friends around you at that time, a little advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say look into a couple different things. One would be I might give myself the advice of, hey, when you get your master's, look into engineering and human factors. I think that that would have paid dividends. I learned a lot over a long period of time to get to where I was, to look at an ergonomics degree or an engineering ergonomics degree. It pays off in this setting to really understand how engineers think, how safety professionals think. So another thing I might say is, hey, look into safety. Look into either an associate safety professional certification, but understand the foundations of safety and the thought process around safety. There's a lot out there. There's different types of safety. You know, there's behavioral based safety, there's hop safety, there's these ideas of sticky safety, which is stuff that can kill you. And that being a focus of like, let's focus on the serious incident and fatalities only. But it's those kinds of terminology and things I learned over time, the hierarchy of controls in ergonomics, that had I known early on, would have made me much more valuable to a company as I stepped forward in that. And then the other piece of advice I would give young professionals or the young version of myself is just continue to always be learning and make those connections and look for those opportunities. I will say this, the grass is not always greener on the other side. So for a lot of people that love sports medicine and they love the sports, and they might say, man, industrial sounds good, like 40 hours a week. For some people, it's not for them. They might say, oh, that's not very exciting. I've got one plant that had 5 cardiac issues in the same year. So if you want exciting, it can be exciting in the industrial setting. We've had amputations, we've had deglovings, we've had all kinds of crazy stuff happens in the industrial setting. So if you're saying, I don't know if it's exciting or not, depends on where you work for that matter. But really looking back, those things that I learned. And then the last thing I'd say is if you say, hey, you know what? I want to do Brian's job. Maybe Brian's going to get hit by a truck tomorrow. And I want to be that like leader of a program in business. I would say getting your MBA, going down that road, that's probably a future thing that I'm going to go towards as an MBA and terminal degree once I finish the CPE process. Understanding the business side of things because there's a lot to know about business hierarchy and project planning and program management and how to manage people well. There's a lot of different management styles and techniques that I think if you can get out there and learn and understand, it makes you more valuable in this setting as well. So that's a lot to say and a lot to learn, obviously. But it's taken a long time to learn a lot of those things that I wish I had known when I was a little bit younger. And somebody had come along and told me the industrial setting exists. I loved my education at Fresno State, and I only learned a little bit that industrial might be an option in there. And I think that's true of a lot of programs. But I think it's one of the fastest growing areas for athletic trainers. And if you want to know more about it, shout out to the Industrial Athletic Trainers Society as well. Susan Ta and Chris Proctor and that team that runs things for the IATS. If you want to know more about the industrial setting, not just from this podcast, but you want to dive in more, that's a great resource to learn about what opportunities are out there across the country.
That, my friend, is a wealth of knowledge in a final statement. I love it. Absolutely fantastic. You did say something that I completely agree with. Actually, God, let's be honest, you said several, but one of them, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's just grass. That's what I usually say. I just add that it's just grass. That's it. Doesn't matter. But no matter what, find what you love. And you had me at the gloving. I don't know where that is, but man, if I'm going industrial, I've worked with that in wound care for a while back in my hospital days. Oh boy, love it, love it, love it.
Yeah,
Industrial Athletic Training Society. Yeah, we are just a small snippet here at our podcast trying to educate people. Reach out to those working in the industry like Brian here or the Industrial Athletic Training Society. Get more information, find out, learn what you can, get into the setting that you know you're going to be in because it's your calling.
yeah, Eli, I think that's one thing I try and tell everybody is find what fills up your cup at the end of the day, right? I said for me, it's helping people, and I want to help as many people as I possibly can. And that's what motivates me to deal with the business side and the management side and all those things and work in this kind of setting. But for some people, that thing that makes you passionate is taking care of the high school kids or taking care of the college kids or working in a pro environment in this traditional sports setting. That's what you went to school for. And you go, man, I love this. Well, money isn't everything, right? In some cases, yeah, you can make more money in one setting versus another, but what fills your cup up at the end of the day and what you're passionate about is more valuable to you than anything else because then work doesn't feel like work. It feels like something you're passionate about doing and you get excited about every day. If you're not doing something that excites you in your work, then life gets a lot harder.
Amen to that. You might have just named the episode, What Fills Your Cup? I love that. I love that. And that's so true. I mean, in the beginning, I was bound for the NFL. No doubt about it. Like so many others, I'm going pro, I'm going pro, I'm going pro. And then I found this place and it just fit. Make sure wherever you end up, it fills your cup every day.
Absolutely.
Well, with that advice, I'd like to say thank you, Brian, for joining us today on Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More. We hope to have you back at a later time, talk more about work care and all the opportunities out there. Thank you for creating jobs for people like me in our industry and helping others understand what athletic trainers do. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend coming up and have a great day.
Thank you. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You too. Have a good one. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Want to make sure you hear every episode? Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast. Don't forget to share our podcast with your colleagues, family, and friends. Your support will help more people find and enjoy our content. Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More is directed by Eli Haller. It is produced by Gabriel Haller. Our theme music is by Coma Studios via Pixabay. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the contributors. Want to know more about us? Visit us at wrapituppodcast.com. That's with one P, wrapituppodcast.com. Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More is a production of Halleck Consulting, LLC.